All right, welcome to the 3 ingredients for uncommon success in today's world, part 2. We are on part 2 of this second part, or this 3-part series. And part 1, you can watch the replay, obviously. And this is going to build on some of that. I'm going to share just a few things from part 1. Certainly not going to teach anything that we already taught, but just to sort of represent a few things, especially that leads into this conversation today. And the whole idea here is uncommon success. So what we're doing is talking about what most people don't do so that you can avoid most people's fate. And in the coaching industry specifically, so we're talking to most people that want to be coaches. That's who's in our community primarily. That's who's showing up for this particular webinar primarily. But all of these principles are going to apply to leadership in general and success in other areas. But the context here is going to be coaching. And in today's coaching world, most coaches fail. Yay. Okay. Bye. Good luck. Good luck. But that's not even a problem. Like that's one of the things I think we really need to address, that success is not an entitlement. Success requires effort, and success has to be uncommon. Otherwise, it would have no value. So success itself is uncommon. Success in the coaching world is uncommon. 90+% of the people that I think try anything that's going to require hard work and dedication and determination and perseverance and support and all those things that are required for us to grow and learn and evolve as humans, most people are going to fail that stuff. And that's because most humans are more driven by comfort than the desire to grow. So that's not even a problem. It just is what it is. And I think if we attack that head on and recognize that most people are not going to get everything that they want, therefore, your choice is, do you want to follow what most people do or do something different? I know that might sound elementary, it might sound too cheesy, but it's just harsh reality. And so success itself is uncommon, especially if you want to hit your goals and your dreams and fulfill whatever level of your purpose that you want to fulfill. So that's the whole essence of this webinar series, is how can you create uncommon success? And the bottom line is, if you want uncommon results, you must follow uncommon recipes. And I don't know about you, but I despise the word common. Like, common is just, I mean, it genuinely, it like angers me, right? Like, because I don't want to be just a common person. I'm not talking about like being better than anybody else, but I'm talking about being just a version of everyone else. I'm talking about just conforming to what everyone else is doing. And I'm not saying that everybody should be that way, but me personally, I'm not interested in just following the crowd, because the crowd was not designed to achieve my goals and dreams. So I think what everybody is doing is probably not Sean's recipe. And I would say the same thing for all of you. So you have to really check in and go, what is it that I personally want? And if you want the goals and the dreams and to fulfill what you believe is your purpose and your mission, and to have a business that can make an impact and create an income and all the things you want to do, you've got to have a personalized approach, because there is no generalized recipe for you. That doesn't exist. And what we see out here in the coaching world, primarily in the personal development world at large, is that so many people are offering generalized results. And here's how you can tell. Anything that sounds like it's guaranteed, anything from anybody who's going to tell you they have the keys that are going to unlock your dreams, or the guaranteed results, or the step-by-step approach, or the simple thing to follow that is proven to work. None of that could be your recipe, because it was created before you heard about it. But people want this stuff. People want guaranteed success. People don't want guaranteed success as much as they want to avoid individual failure. And that's why we follow these proven, predictable claims. But just understand, if it was created before you, then it's generalized. Then it's not for you. Oh, that's good. If it was created before you, then it cannot be for you. That's got to go on a t-shirt. So if you want uncommon results, you have to follow not just uncommon recipes, but individual recipes. And that's what we're going to talk about here today, because as I said, success is, just not common. It's not entitled. It's not guaranteed. So I'm not going to go through my whole bio. I did that on part one. If you want some of the details, you can go look at that. But I've been in this industry for a long time. I've created thousands and thousands of audios and articles and videos, and our YouTube channel has 1 million plus views. And I'm not telling any of that to any of you to try to impress you, just that I've been around a while. I was around before social media. Most of the platforms even existed, let alone the marketing algorithms and the behavior patterns and all that stuff that we have today. So I am definitely an old dog in this industry, and we've created a pretty successful business over the years, done about $8 million. I've been on stage, I'm acting now. I've got this incredible family, and I've really been able to pretty much create my own schedule and create my own freedom. And so everything that I teach is from that place. Nothing that I teach is ever theoretical. It's from looking back wisdom about what worked for me, what caused my huge collapses, what works for other people that I'm talking to, and what doesn't work for people. So I just want you to understand that my conviction comes from experience in the past. I've truly never, Michelle and I were having a little bit of a conversation, I think over text the other day, and she said something like, people are asking me, what's the step-by-step approach to whatever it is, right? To make $1 million or to have 10 clients by the end of the summer or whatever it is. And we hear that all the time. What's the step-by-step approach? If you just give me the step-by-step approach, I'll follow it. And that's not a new question. It actually is. It actually drives the majority of the questions that are out there and that we see all the time. And what I immediately texted back is, tell that person if they find it, I will buy it. Because after 18 years, I haven't found it. And if anybody needs that step-by-step approach, I got my hand up and I got my credit card out. It's bullshit to think that there is a step-by-step approach for anybody out there in an individualized arena. There is a step-by-step approach, I'm sure, to a Starbucks franchise or to a Subway franchise or to build some other kind of commodity business, but not in coaching, because in coaching, you're coaching individuals and you are an individual and everybody has individual variables, and the collection of individuality is such that there are no proven step-by-step approaches that are going to work. Now, I'm not saying that success doesn't leave clues. Of course it does. But you have to be in this the right way. And so just a couple things from part number one, we talked about immersion. It was all in the ingredient number one of not immersion mastery, but embodiment mastery. That's it. Embodiment mastery. So if you want embodiment mastery, you have to train your body instead of just training your mind. And nearly everybody is just informing their mind, but they're not transforming their body. And if you don't transform your body's wisdom, if you don't elevate your body's capacity, then the next level of your journey will spit you out, because your current capacity cannot succeed at the next level. So what I see, I've done it plenty of times as well, is that most of us are just trying to inform our intellect, and then we get frustrated when our body fails us. That's because most people are not actually immersing their body in the work that's required for the next step. So if you're not training your body, you're actually setting your mind up for failure. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be disappointing. And when you're on that path, you're much more likely to cycle by spinning the wheels in the mud and keep trying the same thing that's not working, because your mind thinks that more information is the solution, because it thinks that more information or the right information or missing the right information is the problem. So if you're on the information path, you can only go so far. But if you're on the transformation path, where you can go is unfathomable to your current awareness right now, I promise you. So embodiment cannot be done intellectually. Again, it's one of the things that I think all of us have experienced, and on some level, that our mind is prepared, but our body is scared. So we rehearse our talk, let's say, and then we get up on stage and we forget our name, or we forget to say what we had to say, or we forget our points, or we forget whatever, like we forget the slides, or we forget the stories. We forget because our body wasn't trained for that particular presentation, but our mind was overtrained. And most of us overtrain our intellect. And because of that, we actually put too much pressure on ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why embodiment isn't reached for most people. And then the third thing is, this is like the essence of this whole immersion and embodiment and somatic training idea. It's that knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in your cells. And that couldn't be more true than in the transformational world. If you want to be a transformational agent and you want to do deep work with other people and help other people transform their lives, you can't be only trained with information, selling information, because information never transformed anybody. Information can only do anything valuable if we implement the information. And it's not people's minds that don't implement, it's people's bodies that don't implement. Everybody knows what to do or what not to do. 99% of the stuff that you actually need to do, you already know. And if you don't know, it'll take you an afternoon on Google to find just about everything, right? We don't have an information problem, we have an implementation problem. So implementation is where we have to focus, and that is a function of how prepared our embodiment is. It's not how prepared our mind is. So most of us are over-informed and under-implemented. And if we don't focus on the thing that's actually causing the under-implementation problem, then nothing can ever possibly change. So that's the idea of embodiment mastery in a snapshot. If you didn't watch part one or you want to watch it again, you can get the recordings when you registered for this. If you registered after part one, it's already sent to you in the welcome email. It's on the thank you page. It's in the registration. So you have access to it. And if you don't have access to it, just email us. We'll make sure you get it. So for mastery to be created, you must not only be in the right classroom, meaning you must be in a classroom that's teaching mastery. If you show up to learn mastery, but you're in a classroom that's teaching information, you can't learn mastery in that classroom because that's not the subject matter. And that's not the way it's being taught. So you have to be in the right classroom that's actually teaching mastery. And mastery is not just learning something better. So if you're in a mathematics classroom and it's teaching you how to divide fractions, the better you get at dividing fractions just by memorizing and practicing and doing the rote memory over and over and over again, you'll never hit mastery, because that's not how mastery is created. So mastery is not just learning something really well. Mastery is embodiment. Mastery requires immersion. So you have to be in a classroom that is intentionally teaching mastery. But you also need to be in that classroom the right way. So what I say is, for mastery to be created, you must be in the right classroom, and you must be in the classroom right. Because if you are in a mastery classroom, but you're not in the classroom right, meaning you're just there to learn intellectually, or you think it's all about remembering things, and you just think it's all about rote learning, or you don't have the support, or if you don't understand the importance of persistence or embodiment or all that stuff, then even if mastery is available in the classroom, you won't get it because you're not in the classroom right. So those two things have to come together. They have to be aligned. You need to be in the right classroom, and you need to be in the classroom right. One of the things that we're doing is a live event called Launch. We'll tell you a little bit more, well, a lot more about all the details a little bit later, but just put a pin in that. If you know you want to go, it's in the Dallas area, August 29th through September 1st. It's a 4-day live event. We'll give you more details later, but it's all about everything that I'm talking about, embodiment, and what we're going to get into today with transformational mastery, and what we'll do in part 3 with conversion mastery. You need deep work. You guys, if you want to make a deep impact, then you have to put in deep effort. You have to have deep training. Whatever the level of your training is how far that training will last you. So if you train shallowly, then that training will only last a short amount of time, because it's shallow training. It's shallow in nature. The depth of your learning will determine the length of that learning. So if you really want to make deep impact, if you want to create ripple, and if you want to change people's lives, you have to train accordingly. You have to go deep. So we're doing that. We're offering this 4-day event called Launch, coachseansmith.com/launch if you want to check it out. But we'll tell you more in a little bit. Let's get into the topic of this particular webinar, which is transformational mastery and transformational coaching at a big level, or from a zoomed up perspective, I want you to understand the essence of transformational coaching. Transformational coaching is art and science. Informational coaching doesn't require as much art because you're just taking information and you're sending it to somebody else. But transformational coaching, when you want to have a deep impact with your clients, there is so much more artistry that's required because each individual person is going to be different than everybody else. But if you just want to teach people how to set up an Amazon store, you can give the same information to everybody. They can follow the instructions and everybody can have an Amazon store later on, right? Like just by following the same set of instructions. Not with transformational coaching. Every individual is unique and they have a unique set of circumstances and fears and strengths and all that. And that's where artistry comes in. However, it's not all art. It has to be informed by science. So we're going to break down a lot of that science inside of human transformation. And when you have the science as the information and your artistry to provide the transformation, then you can be insanely powerful as a transformational coach. So it's not only is it not about just giving information, transformational coaching is so much about asking the right kinds of questions. And in order to do that, you have to be informed with the right kinds of concepts. Because if you understand the concepts, then it will inform the questions that you ask, and you can ask transformational questions. And if you're informed by that, then you can adopt transformational listening so that you can ask those transformational questions, right? And one of the things that we need you to understand, nearly all of mastery is invisible. So if you watch master level coaching from the mindset of an amateur, you'll miss almost all of the mastery because you're just going to see what's observable. But almost all of mastery level coaching is not observable. It's listening. It's asking the questions that you want to ask. It's paying attention to how the people are answering the questions. It's paying attention to their facial expressions if you have access to them visually. It's paying attention to the tonality. It's just watching how they answer questions and how they tell their stories, because the body is always telling a story. Most of the time, the story that the body is telling is not the same story as the one that the mouth is telling. The mastery level coach listens to the story the body is telling 100 times more intently than the story that the mouth is telling. Of course, we're listening to what they're saying also, but we're taking in the whole thing, and that's mastery level coaching. So you have to go deep with this understanding. A lot of you've probably seen that visual of the iceberg where the majority of the iceberg is underwater. That's a great analogy that we use all the time. The majority of mastery level coaching is below water. It's the below water stuff that will allow you to do the tangible, observable, above water coaching. But you have to understand what's underneath it, right? So mastery coaching, mastery level coaching, transformational coaching, really, truly deep work requires you to understand the laws, not the rules. Now, your intellect hates this because your intellect wants to know exactly what to do all the time, because your intellect is driven by the fear of danger. Your intellect requires comfort. It requires control. It wants to be able to know what's around every corner so you can prepare for it. The problem is that never exists when you're talking to a human. One of the things we say in all of our certification programs is that your script will never survive collision with a human, ever. You can be all prepared. You can be ready to go. You can rehearse. You can go, when I say this, they're going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and they're going to say this, and it will never go that way. Your script can also be what your expectations are. You think you're going to use a certain exercise, and that's going to create this kind of shift in that person. It will never go according to your script. So if you are connected and committed to and attached to your script, then as soon as a variable shifts, you're going to freak out because your intellect wants to know what the rules are. Mastery requires you to learn the laws, not the rules, because the laws are fundamental. I like that word. It's a little hybrid between fundamental and foundational, but the laws are fundamental. We're gonna figure out how that word is actually profound. I promise. You'll see it again, I'm sure. The laws are fundamental. They are fundamentals, they are foundational, and they create stability. That's what foundation actually is. If you think about foundation in an analogy of a building, you need a solid foundation. You need to drill down. You need to fill the ground with cement before you build up, because the building requires stability. Roots in trees or bushes or anything that grows in the ground, roots have to go down so that they can provide a foundation for the plant to grow up. So we need the stability of depth, and that requires an understanding of laws, not rules. Rules are all the stuff above the ground that almost everybody is searching for and almost everybody is attaching their success to. It's like if you were in a relationship and you just wanted to have a really good relationship and somebody gave you their script that they use in their relationship to create whatever amount of fun or trust or, joy or connection or intimacy or whatever, and you just take that script and apply it to your partner, of course it's not going to work. So why do we do that with coaching? Why do we do that with personal development? We have expectations in this industry that we don't have expectations in any other industry around. But for whatever reason, we've been sold these ideas that we can just succeed in the transformational coaching industry with individual people by following a one-size-fits-all assembly line approach. Where did we get that? But if you don't buy that concept, then you won't fall for any of the cons. I'm going to drink to that one. It's only water. If you don't buy the concept, then you won't fall for the cons. You won't fall for the idea that there's a way to make this easy because you never believed that it was easy. You won't fall for the idea that there's a proven, guaranteed, one-size-fits-all approach because you don't believe that that concept is true. And that, again, requires depth. It requires laws. And when you understand laws, especially marketing laws, conversion laws, which we'll get into in part 3 of this series, and we'll teach at depth at our launch event. When you understand conversion, instead of trying to get good at your sales techniques, why don't you learn why people buy? Because instead of rehearsing how to sell something, you'll actually be listening to the human on the other side of the conversation and paying attention to what could potentially make them say yes to something. So understanding buying strategies is 1,000,000 times more powerful than understanding sales strategies. But if you understand sales strategies, then you will, if you understand buying strategies, then you will, as a byproduct, be better at sales strategies. So we have to go deep and we have to go bottom up with the laws so that you can figure out how to actually maneuver. And then when the rules change, when Facebook changes the algorithms or something happens in the environment, you can pivot. Rules don't pivot. Laws do. Fundamentals can pivot. The same fundamentals that I use right now in my business on Instagram stories, let's say, or Facebook posts, are the same fundamentals that I was using in 2006 when I put up the first opt-in pages, before Facebook was even a thing, before Instagram was a thing, before webinars was a thing, before live videos was a thing. All of the foundational laws were still at play way back then. But most of the people that were just learning the rules of everything that was going on back then, they're not around anymore because they didn't survive the evolution of the environment. Foundation allows you to survive the evolution of the environment. Foundation allows you to pivot when the rules change. But if you're just attached to the rigid rules, you have no chance. And what your intellect is wanting is to learn the rigid rules that won't change so that you know exactly what to do all the time. But rigid rules will never apply to humans because the rigidity in the rules is requiring that they don't change, but humans never don't change. So why would we look for static rules that never change to apply to humans that never don't change? If you think about it, it's insane what our brains are looking for, because on the surface, that's crazy, but I get it. We all want the comfort. We want the control. Ultimately, that's what it's about. We want the control. But you have to understand how your brain is operating so that you can understand how other people's brains are operating so you can actually help some folks, right? So that's what's really at stake here. is your ability to have stability and your ability to pivot so that no matter what happens in the future, you have a chance and you don't go down with whatever the changes are that are in the environment. So you have to keep your finger on the pulse of the humans, of the industry, of whatever's going on in social media, right? Or marketing in general. You have to understand how they are changing so that you can change to meet the changes. Again, not something that most people are focused on because people are just looking for this one size fits all. And if you do have a one size fits all approach, then essentially what you've done is you've turned your business and you've turned yourself into a commodity. And in this context, what that means is you're interchangeable. You are so ununique. Is that a word? You are so common. You are so unimportant that we can remove somebody else and put you in and nothing will change. And if there's a recipe where one of the ingredients can be removed and another ingredient can be put in and nothing changes in the recipe, then that ingredient should just be removed because it didn't do anything, which means it's unimportant, right? It's an obsolete ingredient. Like, it doesn't even matter. So again, if we're trying to find that thing that we fit into, we're by default positioning ourselves as not important. You are not a commodity. Your clients are not commodities. Every variable here is individual in nature. And so we have to act like we're individuals and we're not commodities. With all that in mind, let's talk about the 5 principles of transformational mastery. Now, each one of these principles, we could go for a full day at least. I'm not going to teach any of them to exhaustion because that's not possible in the time that we have. But I want to give you a high level awareness around some of these foundational principles. So this first one is a concept that I made up, I don't know how long, at least the title of it, when I was probably in coaching, I'd say around 10 years or so. And what just really got me is that most of the time we're actually helping people go back to earlier versions of themselves to heal or to reintegrate or to connect the dots or to reframe something, right? And so after coaching over and over and over again for I don't know how long, what hit me is this analogy of what I call arrested development. And what that means is, if you look at the slide, what it means is we're all just kind of moving along life, with our blank canvas and learning all the stuff that we need to learn and or trying to survive and all that stuff. And then at some point in time in our earlier years, generally, something happens that doesn't feel safe to us. We get laughed at, we get yelled at, possibly we endure some kind of physical harm or something that is uncomfortable and it's unenjoyable and we just don't like it. And so when we're young, we realize that wasn't safe, right? The feeling that I have is not safe, so the thing that I did is not safe. And from that point forward, the way the brain works is we try to protect ourselves from ever making that mistake again. So we hold on to it as a mistake, and then we try to find safety after that mistake, after that danger, so that we don't ever mess up again. And when we do that, if you look at the slide, right where it says this isn't safe, from that point forward, we go into protection mode. And we create so many beliefs and we create definitions and we create values and we create drivers and we create programs and we create language and we create patterns and we create behaviors and we create skills and we create all these things to protect us from what wasn't safe before. And all of those things, if they're formed for the purpose of protection, then their main goal is exactly that. Their main goal isn't necessarily the continued healthy development of the human. It's the continued protection of the human that feels like something isn't safe anymore. So as we go on and on, you can see the footprints get bigger and bigger on the slide. As we go on and on, we're growing with these layers that are protecting us. And a lot of times these habits are conflicting with each other, or the beliefs or the identities or all the things that are kind of, in the pinball machine of our brains and our minds and our bodies. And at some point in time, we realize that this isn't working for me. I want something different. I want a better relationship. I want more money. I want a different body. I want a better self-esteem. I want something that I don't currently have. And then you get into personal development. And when you get into personal development, what you'll realize at some point in time, whether it's this language or not, it's the layers that are the problem. It's not the person underneath the layers. It's the layers protecting the person that's the problem. And so if you really get into the deep work, what essentially is happening is you're going to make a spiritual U-turn. You're going to make a U-turn and start going back into the beliefs that were formed a long time ago. You're going to go back into the experiences that you've been remembering from a long time ago. That doesn't mean you have to go all the way back in your childhood, but what happens is you start looking at the patterns that you have and what needs to be changed, or what needs to be healed, or what needs to be integrated. And so back to this slide, the real solution is actually kind of to go backwards in this analogy. But what happens is, as you start to go further and further back, and by the way, if any of this is really landing for you, you can see your journey in this, then type in chat if you're watching live or wherever you're watching the replay, type in chat, because a lot of people don't realize that they're going through something that a lot of other people are going through too. So we want you to know that you're not the only one experiencing some of this stuff if you're experiencing it. And of course, if you have any questions along the way, as with all of our trainings, always ask questions. It's helpful for us if you put a Q colon in front of it just so that it stands out, and we'll grab it. We might not answer it on the webinar, but we'll put it in line in Q to get it somewhere. So when you go back into the direction of where the where the solution actually is, where the target actually is, what will happen is you will start to have a lot of resistance. Because these behavior patterns, it's like, imagine you have a lot of layers on you, and all of a sudden you want to start taking the layers off. But your body is used to having the layers because the layers have always kept you warm, right? The layers have always kept you safe. So do you think your body is just going to love the fact that you are taking the layers off? Of course not, because you have a lot riding inside those layers. You have a lot attached to those layers. Sometimes you have success attached to those layers, especially if any of the layers have been celebrated or helped you get out of something dangerous or helped you achieve something that you want. You've got safety built into the layers. You've got a lot of familiarity built into the layers. You've got comfort. You've got control. You have a lot of reasons to not take these things off. And so when we go back in and do some of this work, there's actually a lot of resistance because it doesn't feel comfortable. And because I believe that most humans are driven by comfort more than growth, when you start going in the right direction, listen to this, this is super profound and important to understand. When you start going in the right direction, your body will start to resist it. And if you're driven by comfort, your body will easily convince you to turn around and go back in the direction of comfort. If you don't understand that getting uncomfortable is part of the process, then you will probably be susceptible to your body telling you to go back and seek comfort. So this idea of arrested development from a transformational coaching perspective, of course, I want you to understand this for your own life, but from a coaching perspective, you have to understand that when you do transformational work with your clients, there will be resistance. In fact, if there's not resistance, that's when I get concerned. I get concerned if my clients are like, this is the most enjoyable thing that I've ever had, and let's do more, please. Because if there's not discomfort along the way, then we're probably not doing anything worth doing. If the goal is transformation, if the goal is to remove some of the layers, right? So you have to understand this concept so that you can have the capacity to hold people through their discomfort and maybe explain to them why their body is resisting, but also as the coach, know where to hone in on that resistance, because that's where the transformational listening will inform the questions that you ask and that can reveal the actual issues, right? So a sub-concept underneath this arrested development idea is the difference between focusing on behavior and behavior. Meaning underneath all behavior is a behavior. It's one who is behaving. It's the person underneath the behavior. And just like I've been saying multiple times, there's no across the board assembly line approach that's going to work for everybody. There's no coaching solution that's going to work for all behaviors because everybody is an individual. So if you take somebody who has a fear of speaking in public, let's say, and you figure out that this solution worked for you or worked for somebody else, don't take that same solution and apply it to somebody else necessarily and think it's going to work. Because the reason we have our behaviors are all different. And if my fear of speaking is different than your fear of speaking, then the solutions cannot be the same. So you have to see the behavior underneath the behavior so that you can actually do work that has a chance to transform this individual person. When people are attracted to and focused on and committed to only behavior changes, it's easy, it's simple, it's comfortable. You know, if you want to be a weight loss guru, you could just go tell people to just eat less calories and work out a little bit more and stop eating Snickers bars and start eating more salads. Who doesn't know that? Everybody knows that. That's not the reason. But if you really want to transform a life, why don't you understand why that individual human is drawn towards sweets? Or maybe has a resistance to going to the gym or to exercise in general, or maybe has this hopelessness around what's even possible in their lives, right? If you don't understand what's going on at the individual level underneath the behavior, then you can't truly actually change anybody's life. You can deliver information they can get anywhere else, but you're not going to actually be able to save that individual person or make any implementation changes unless you understand that the behavior is way more important to explore than the behavior. That is all mixed into this idea of arrested development, which is the essence of transformational coaching. So that's principle number one. Principle number two, and these stack, right? These actually kind of stack down, meaning, you know, arrested development is the big umbrella, and then each of these things are the next two especially are going to like sit inside of those. They're going to kind of nest inside of those. So this next one that fits under this umbrella of arrested development, and especially this idea of behavior and behavior, is the difference between symptoms work and systems work. Long-term behavior change requires systems work. We need to look at the system that created the craving for the Snickers bar, not the symptom of eating the Snickers bar. Because if we had an ability to turn off the switch and make this human never again eat a Snickers bar, but there's a system that's craving sweets, and even deeper than that, craving emotional validation, let's say, if you take the Snickers bar away, the human will just fill it with something else, some other reward. But if we look at the system that's at play, the system of behaviors and patterns and emotions and beliefs and all those things that are working below the surface, then we can actually make changes that as a byproduct shifts the behavior. But if all you do is just try to change the symptoms, then essentially all we're doing is trying to force people into doing something that they have resistance against, or forcing ourselves into doing something that they have resistance against. One of the analogies we use a lot in our coaching certification and just overall understanding of human transformation is that if you have in your backyard an apple tree, but you don't want an apple tree, you want an orange tree, what nearly everybody is actually doing in this analogy is just trying to paint the apples orange and then selling it as an orange tree, selling it to themselves or other people as an orange tree. See, there's an orange tree, and I was able to do that overnight, and I can teach you how to turn your apple tree into an orange tree overnight. It's bullshit. Again, this is one of those areas nobody would actually do that. Nobody would actually do that. If you really want an orange tree, in the place where you have an apple tree, I'm looking this way because that's my backyard. In the place that you have an apple tree, you have to first remove the apple tree. So in a world where people are constantly buying different brands of orange paint, we're offering you shovels and knee pads and gloves and instructions on how to dig up the system that's not working. And once that system is dug up, then we can plant, in this analogy, the new system, the orange tree. However, in real life, the cool thing is the orange tree has already been planted. We don't have to create anything new. We just have to reveal the authentic systems that are already at play. I have a belief that the human animal is already intact. The human animal is already healthy until we mess it up with programming. So the good news is you don't have to be anybody different than what you currently are. You've just got to remove all the things that are not currently you. You've got to remove the behaviors of protection so that your authentic self can actually be revealed. And that's incredibly important to understand because most of us are just addicted to addition. You know, what can I add to my life? What can I add to my mind? What can I add to my body? In reality, we need to remove things from your mind and your life and your body and reveal what's already there that's already perfect. You know, not that we're perfect in terms of flawless, but all the ingredients have a perfect combination for you to live the life that you want to live if we remove a lot of the things that are in our way. So I believe that personal transformation is a lot more focused on, or should be focused on, releasing the parking brake rather than pushing harder on the gas. Because if you release the parking brake, you can actually, I'm sure all of you have done this at some point, or maybe you've seen it done. If you release the parking brake, you can actually push your car. But if you have the parking brake all the way on, you can be in your car and revving up the gas and try to go as fast as you can. At best case scenario, you'll be incredibly slowed down, right? So that's what this world of transformational coaching is really about. It's about understanding the behavior underneath and helping uncover whatever the protective mechanisms and layers and beliefs and all that stuff are in the way, rather than trying to add something new. So again, that's why there are no one-size-fits-all solutions for behavior change for humans, because there are no one-size-fits-all humans. As soon as there's a one-size-fits-all group of humans, then we can search for the one-size-fits-all human behavior change. And one of the reasons that a lot of coaches really struggle is because they're just putting all their eggs in this one-size-fits-all approach. Again, I don't think anybody would intellectually, consciously say they're doing that. But in the strategies that we're following, in the programs that we're buying, in the promises that we're consuming and believing, it's actually one-size-fits-all guaranteed approaches that'll remove the failure, so you don't have to deal with whatever your relationship to failure is. But if you're willing to roll up the sleeves and do the work and understand behaviors, then you can have tremendous effect and tremendous impact on the behavior's behavior. If you don't do that, my advice actually, if you're driven by being a transformational coach and changing people's lives, my advice actually is to not try this if you're most committed to one-size-fits-all behavior approaches. Just don't do it, because it's not going to work. If it's not going to work, I'd rather you just enjoy your life. Just go buy a boat and, you know, enjoy your life by the lake. But if you want to really do this, then you have to be prepared to do this. You like, another analogy we use all the time is the moon's not like the earth. If you really want to go to the moon, that's great, but you need to know there's no oxygen there and there's no gravity there. So if you try to live life on the moon as you do on the earth, you won't have a life on the moon. It doesn't matter how comfortable you are with oxygen. It doesn't matter how committed you are to gravity. They don't operate there. So you can either try to change the conditions of the moon, or you can prepare yourself for the journey and for the destination. That's what we're talking about here. the embodied preparation. And way too many people are buying promises, but not preparations. We think that if people are promising us success, then they're also preparing us for success. And I would say it's the exact opposite, actually. Anybody that's promising you success is preparing you for failure. Because there is no promise. Not in this world. Not with individual coaching, and not with entrepreneurship, and not with building a business. But let me pause here for a second. I'm going to tell you about the launch event here in a moment, and then we'll get back into the principles. But we have to stop, I think, as a society, individually, we have to stop demanding the approaches that we actually know won't work. But one of the challenges that I have as a person, that we have as a company, is that the truth is not sensational. And we live in a world where we are compelled to chase sensationalism. But here's the problem. There are no sensational foundations. There are no novel fundamentals. And there's definitely no sensational and novel fundations. So the problem is, we need to recognize that this learning has to be sober. It cannot be inebriated. We cannot be drunk chasing all the quick fixes and expect to build anything deep and foundational and stable. But that requires us to recognize when we are chasing the things that are not for us, that are not aligned with us, or that might be a good thing, but just not now, right? And I think most people are not necessarily making the wrong choices. They're making the right choices at the wrong time in this journey of coaching. Yes, at some point in the future, you might want to run a Facebook ads campaign. Not now. Yes, at some point, you might want to run a challenge. You might want to put together a webinar funnel. You might want to do Instagram stories. At some point in time, you might want to sell the way that you see other people selling, or you might want to create a system that operates like other systems. But for most of you, the time to do that is not now. Because the foundation needs to be built first. It'd be like, hey, look at that 10th story penthouse apartment. I want to build that. Okay, great. And what's the first thing you need to do? Dig down into the ground. You're like, no, but I just want that 10th story. But you need the first 9, which means you need the foundation first. And it saddens me, it truly saddens me when I see people in an analogy, and I'm not saying this for any, like, it's not your intelligent level, but what I see for a lot of people is the kindergartners in the coaching industry are buying the Corvettes that are designed for college kids. And if you're a kindergartner trying to learn how to drive a Corvette, you will kill yourself before you learn to drive. And in this world, what that means is you'll probably waste a lot of time or a lot of money or lose hope or stop believing in yourself before it actually works for you. It's not your fault, and that Corvette is not the problem. It's just not the right time. I hope that's landing, and everything that we want to do, we actually, like, some of it is just tough love, and some of it is, might feel like, we're stepping on toes, but we're doing it for your advocacy. We're doing it for your liberation, actually. So we're not doing it to try to shut you down. We're actually doing it to try to pump you up. Because what's possible is insanely powerful. But you just have to know what you're getting into so that you individually can make this work. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here, and we're going to talk about our program launch, and then we're going to get back into these principles. We designed this 4-day live program, and there's a virtual option. We'll tell you about that. We designed this 4-day live program called Launch so that we can implement all the things we're talking about in these three in this series of these 3 webinars, and everything that we always talk about. Because whatever we say is necessary, that's what we put into our programs, because it comes from the necessities of what people require in order to make the work, in order to be able to implement, in order to evolve, right? So if we believe there's an ingredient missing, that's what we put into our programs. So launch essentially is a 4-day immersion event where we're going to give you all the things that we're talking about so that you can truly, as the title says, launch to your next level or launch a business if you're not yet in business. But we want to teach you the foundational principles. We're not just going to impress your mind. We're not just going to mesmerize you and get you all overwhelmed and disoriented and then sell you something at the end. No. We're going to help you dive deep into your foundation so that you can leave the event with traction and you can leave the event with some momentum. And then hopefully when you get back home, you can continue that momentum. That's the whole intentionality with launch. So before I get into the details of the price and the structure and all that kind of stuff, let me explain to you what the two main components of launch are. The first component is coaching depth. It's the transformational mastery in the form of coaching skills. So we're actually going to be refilming our BCC program. Many of you have gone through that program. If you don't know about it, it's our first level certification program. And we're going to go deep into that program's content and add new stuff that we didn't have when we originally recorded it, and just making the content that was there better or more efficient. You know, a lot of things have changed in our company and me personally and everybody that works here, Michelle, Sarah, everybody, since we filmed the original version of BCC. But let me explain to you why I think BCC is so powerful for people, is because it's not a rules-driven program. It is a human-driven program. In BCC, what you'll learn is the fundamental principles of human behavior. And then once you understand what is actually under the hood and in the mind of a human being, then you'll learn how to listen for the challenges and how to use certain coaching skills, exercises, techniques, and tools to affect behavior change. What I believe most coaching programs are doing, because I've taken coaching programs, or I've talked to so many people who are certified up the you know what, but don't have clients. And the reason that a lot of people are certified and clientless, or certified in just not getting what they want, is because they don't actually understand people. They understand coaching skills, they've passed whatever test, or they intellectually comprehend tools and exercises, but they don't understand people. And I say that because a lot of people have told us that exact thing. They're saying, oh, now we have people that were even mastery certified in NLP or some other coaching program, and they tell us, but now I know when to use it, and now I know how to use it, and now I know what not to do, and now I know why not to do it. So now it's the implementation stuff. It's not the what. It's the when, where, how, why, and who. That's way more important. It's the implementation ability of the skills. So the first 2 days of launch are going to be a deep dive into transformational coaching skills and understanding and behavior and all the stuff that most people are missing. When you understand the human, then you can actually be a transformational agent so much better. The second part of launch is more around strategy and marketing and messaging. But I had a realization a couple years ago when we were teaching one of our marketing programs. I realized that so many people are trying to sell and market out there, whether it's online, traditional marketing stuff online, or social media marketing online, or even in-person stuff. So many people are following recipes, but they don't understand the principles underneath the recipes. Again, they don't understand the laws. They just are following rules. And so what hit me is most people actually don't understand conversion theory. They don't understand what would make people give you an email address, what would make people give you their attention, what would make people engage and leave a comment, what would make people share your content with others, what would make people open your emails and consume your information, what would make people show up to your webinars, to your live events, go to your blog, what will make people ultimately give you not only their time and attention, but give you their money. If you don't understand what converts, which is essentially what would make people go from here to there, whether we're talking about a passive listener to an active subscriber, that's conversion theory. What makes people convert from one step to another? If you don't understand what makes people convert from one step to another, and your customer journey has 5 steps or 10 steps or 15 steps, you have no chance, I'm telling you. You have to be able to get the kindergartners into first grade and the first graders into second grade and the second graders into third grade, all the way down the line. You have to understand conversion at a deep level. And then here's the good news. Some of you are going to take what you learn about conversion and apply it to Instagram with your product and your community, and it can work for you because you understand the fundamentals underneath conversion. And then somebody else might take all the same conversion principles and apply them in person and do lunch and learns, or go out to schools or PTA organizations or the Kiwanis Club and build in-person networking events and use the same exact conversion theory principles, but apply it to a different product with different people and a different person leading the way, but the conversion laws still all apply. But if I teach you how to sell in your Instagram stories and you take that and try to apply it to the in-person networking event at your local BNI club, it won't work. Because you're different, it's different, and they're different. So conversion is the base root seed of marketing. And you cannot take marketing rules without conversion awareness and have it work for you. So just like everything, we're going to teach depth, we're going to teach foundation, and specifically the last 2 days of launch are going to be conversion days that you'll be able to mold and apply in your world, in your arena, in your community, with your product and your person, however it fits for you. So I will never promise any of you any kind of one size fits all. Like, I'm not going to give every single one of you the blueprint that's going to work for all of you. That's disrespectful to even pretend that that thing exists. Of course not. But I want to teach you agency. I want to teach you independence. I want to teach you entrepreneurship. I want to teach you how to build your muscles so that when the wind blows, you can pivot. And when it changes directions, you can pivot again. And no matter what's happening out there in the world, in the environment, no matter what things are disrupting humanity, you have stability and you can still serve the people, but that requires depth. It requires a deep understanding. So that is what launch is all about. It's a 4-day in-person event divided up into 2 days of deep coaching and 2 days of conversion mastery. And my promise to you is you're going to walk out of there knowing laws. You're going to walk out of there knowing foundations. You're going to walk out of there having a depth of stability in your body. And because it's an immersion event, you're actually going to have experiences that create traction and momentum. Most people just are informed in their intellect, and that's why they go out there and they forget their name, or they have all these ideas and they want to do they want to do live videos, or they want to do something else, but their body keeps failing them, right? A lot of people I know want a YouTube channel, but they don't have a YouTube channel. But they don't have videos, or they want to do a blog. They don't have anything populating the blog. It's because their body is failing them. So that's what I want to help you remove is do the deep work at your roots. So with all that being said, let me share with you some of the details. We have 2 options if you're going to join us in person. We have a VIP option and we have a general admission option. A VIP option is you are in the front of the room. You're going to get all the live event recordings so you can watch them over and over and over again in the future and really deepen the learning every time you watch it. We've got some merchandise for you. We're going to do 2 Q&A sessions. We're either going to do them there live, or if time doesn't permit that, because something happens that we can't control the time, then we'll do it afterwards. But you're going to get 2 Q&A sessions so that we can answer some of your specific questions from the information that we taught, so that we can help you go deeper. And then finally, we're going to have a VIP night out. We're all going to go out together and actually network with other VIPs and just really strengthen the connection and strengthen the learning. Right now, we have an early bird investment. It's $747 for a VIP ticket, a single VIP ticket, or right now we also have a discounted dual ticket option. You can get 2 tickets for only $12.47. You guys can obviously split the cost if that's helpful for you, but 2 VIP tickets for a bundled price of $12.47. All of this can be found at coachshansmith.com/launch. Gregor sent me an email just the other day and he said, my life is in a whole new place since trusting in the guidance. We're going to talk about trust. It's one of the principles coming up. I cannot thank you enough for healing me to get myself over the belief line of can I coach people? Can I coach people? That's one of the biggest belief challenges that so many people have. Can I do this? Can I actually help people? Can I transform people? So Gregor's gone through all 3 of our certification programs, and he said it hits him deep right now when he realizes that I am a successful life coach measured in certainty and usefulness to others, and I only secretly wanted this for 35 plus years. Gregor did the work. He stuck around, and he got the support, and he had the persistence, and he asked the questions, and he showed up, and he just kept doing the work and doing the work and doing the work. Here's the cool thing about the foundational recipes. They only work always. That's it. They only work always. The only way a foundational recipe won't work is if you don't work it. That's the only way a foundational recipe won't work. Fad-driven recipes, in my experience, similarly, only work never. And if it works short term, it is coming down because it's driven by fads and not foundation. If you have foundational principles, though, you can add some fads and some trends and understanding what's working out there and speed up your progress. But you'll never build a business based on fads. It has to be foundation. And that's what Gregor committed to. And that's why a few years later, I think it's less than 2 years for him. It's depth of certainty and conviction. If you just want the general admission, I think I jumped ahead here. Let's see. There you go. General admission. If you want general admission, you don't want the VIP, you don't want to get that close to us. That's kind of cool. That's totally fine. If you don't want the Q&A sessions because there's too much of Sean, I get it. Then you could just do a general admission, save a little bit of money, and it's $497 for a ticket. You're going to be live with us in the room and experience all the experiences that you have. We also have a 2-ticket package right now for $897, so you save $100 on that. If you have another person that wants to come general admission for you, there's also payment plans on the website if you want to go there and check out some payment plans. And if you have any questions for us about anything, if it's the right thing for you, or you want to tell us who you really are and what you're certified in already, and if this is going to work for you, whatever, any individualized questions, let us know. And we'll give you all that information as best we can. Virtual VIP. Sorry, for some reason there you go. The headers, the banners weren't showing up on some of these slides. So the virtual admission, if you can't join us live, if you're on another part of the planet, or just for whatever reason you're not able to join us live, there is a virtual option. The virtual option is $347 for a general admission ticket, or you can upgrade and get access to the recordings and get access to the Q&A session as well for virtual VIP. So those are the 2 different options. I know there's several different variables here, and so again, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, just let us know, and we'll answer whatever questions you have. Michelle Taylor says, worth every penny. It's a game changer for coaches who want certainty that their work will change lives and they're equipped for all situations. Now, in full transparency, none of these people have come to launch because we've never done launch before, but they've gone through our programs. And so they're talking about the fundamental principles that we're teaching in our program. So all these people have gone through one level or more than one level of our certification programs. Danny said, I paid $5,000 and $7,500 for 2 other training programs. And he said he got more from our BCC program than any of them, which is a fraction of the cost. And again, I think it's because we teach depth of transformational awareness and understanding. You also get 30 free days access in our Elite Coaching Mastery membership program. What we're doing now is twice a month, we're watching coaching demonstrations. Sometimes they're live, sometimes they're recorded, and we just pause them and play them going through the recording. And Michelle and I primarily are breaking down all the elements of coaching. We got 5 different categories that you really have to look at and focus on if you want to increase your mastery level abilities as a coach. And so we break down all those categories. And what it gives you is a depth of understanding at a much, much deeper level than what almost anybody is getting and what almost anybody is delivering out there. Because if you want mastery, you have to see variables. You have to see variation. You have to see different people coaching different people on different things. And you need to dissect that. So a lot of times we'll watch a 20-minute coaching exercise and dissect it for an hour or an hour and a half, or maybe even 2 hours, because the roots underneath everything are so deep. But if you're willing to train at that level, what you can get out of it is phenomenal. Alicia is one of our mentor coaches actually down there at the bottom. And she says, watching unscripted coaching demos has been an invaluable part of her coaching journey. The session dissections in the mastery program help her understand coaching at a deeper level. And it's the difference between being a good coach and a great coach. I think that was cut off. But Alicia is one of our mentor coaches, and she's coached thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. So the fact that this program can give her more and more and more depth speaks to what happens if you continue to dissect all the fundamentals. So we do have a fast action bonus, which ends today as of the recording where we are right now, which is July 14th. That's ending at midnight Eastern time, which is 8 hours from, no, not 8 hours, actually Pacific time. I changed that, and I shouldn't have changed it. It's about 7 hours from now as we're doing the recording. So that is midnight Pacific time. Watch this, in the moment transformation. How about that? It is midnight Pacific time. And you get twice as many days in the Elite Coaching Mastery membership. You also get a $100 credit, like a coupon that you can use toward anything that you want to get going forward of $300 or more. You can't take that $100 off of launch, but anything after that that you want to invest in, you get a $100 coupon. And so that ends at midnight. Those prices are still around for a few more days, about a week-ish. Don't hold me to that, but the prices are still around, but that fast action bonus ends tonight. If you want more support, book a call. A lot of people just need a few what about me questions answered. So if you have some what about me questions, book a call and we'll do everything that we can to support you. CoachSeanSmith.com/book my call. All right, with all of that in mind, let's go back and dive into these keys. Michelle, is there anything that I need to go back and address in the comment section, or anything that I missed, or just anything that you want to add before we get back into the principles?
I don't believe so. Yes, we're good.
Perfect. All right. So let's dive back into these principles. We got 3 more for you. And again, they're nesting underneath each other, right? So we have arrested development as an overall concept of human transformation. Then we have symptoms versus systems as what you need to look at and focus on. And then inside of systems versus symptoms, there's this individual acute focus that is really critical. And it's the separation between the person and the programming. What I mean by this is most people, when they hit that phase in arrested development, let me go back to that slide. When most people hit that moment where they say this isn't safe, most human brains at that point in time, where we're only a few years old generally, and we don't have the experiences and we don't have the adult wisdom, and we've only lived in a certain space of kind of blind belief, and all the people that are around us at that time, like that's who we think that makes up the whole world basically. We don't really have an expanded awareness at that time. So we have a very myopic view of life, and it's just based on what we've experienced. When the brain is in that state and it has blind belief, it has no reason to question what's happening. Whatever is happening is just the way the world works until we learn that there are other ways that the world works. When the brain is in that space and something unsafe happens, something uncomfortable happens, something painful happens, the brain is more likely, And when I say more likely, it's almost entirely likely to decide that it's our fault. And if you think about it, the way the brain's operating at that elementary level, it makes sense. It's actually empowering to think it's your fault. Because if it's your fault, then you can change. So a lot of us learned at an early age, or we decided rather at an early age, that we are the problem. We decided that because we hit that place where we experienced something that wasn't fun, and we tried to figure out how can we avoid that. So what the brain says is, if we just never do what we did that created the consequences, then we should be safe for the rest of our life. And if we are the problem, if we're messing up, if we're not performing right, if we're not listening right, if we're talking too much, if we're not being perfect in whatever parameters are given to us, then we're going to get in trouble. So the answer is to be perfect, according to whatever rules that are around us at that time, whether people are giving it to us explicitly or we're trying to deduce what the rules are. So most of us have adopted some inadequacy belief called not enough that's applied to us as a person. Again, raise your hand or type in chat if you resonate with this. Some I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not small enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not poor enough. I'm not this enough or that enough. Most of us have some kind of I'm not enough belief that was started. It's a story that was started way back then. So fast forward, we're all adults and we are still operating on the belief systems that were developed as kids. I mean, you think about that. Most adults are still operating according to toddler belief systems. Not necessarily toddler intellect or toddler awareness, but toddler belief systems that were started when we were toddlers, that were started when we were 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 6, but most of our deepest beliefs were started when we were 2, 3, or 4. Nearly all of our operating beliefs happened before the age of 6. So most of us are still operating on beliefs that were started before the age of 6. Think about that for a second. Now, if we don't recognize that we can go back and change those beliefs, then we're just going to be wrestling with them literally for the rest of our lives. But the good news is, if we understand how this works, we can go back and we can reframe and we can undo and we can change the stories and change the beliefs and realign and reclaim and reveal and uncover and discover and all the things that we talk about, right? We can do all that. And we can do all this with our clients. But we first have to understand what's actually happening at a deep, deep, deep level. And most people have married person and programming. Because when we're wearing all these layers, which is our programming, we equate the layers with the person. We equate the layers with ourselves. So we become our programming and we think the programming is us. So that if we start removing a layer, it feels like we're removing a part of us, but we're not. It's just that we're comfortable with that layer. So one of the deep, deep elements here, it's like splitting the atom of personal development. We need to go down and realize, where is the person attached to the programming? And we need to know as a coach that the person is not the programming is not the person, and the person is not the problem, the programming is the problem. The person is never the problem. The programming is always the problem. That is really difficult for a lot of people to understand and comprehend and fully grasp because it's so deep, but it's so liberating. If you realize I'm not the problem, but my programming is. And that's when and where and why and how you can really dive into the individual person and then look at the programming that's been driving that individual person's behavior choices for a long time and start to shift. So we have to remove the programming suit from the person and then work on the programming. Now, I'm not talking about like you can just suction it off, that'd be fantastic. We'd be selling different products if that were the case. And, probably get mega rich. But intellectually and conceptually, we're removing the programming, working on the programming, and keeping the person intact. There's never anything wrong with the person, only the programming. It's so liberating, and it instills hope when it's done properly. But I just think most of us are not drilling down that deep because we're just focused on exercises. We're focused on the tools. We're focused on the techniques. We're focused on remembering the things that we have to remember. And again, I said this earlier, but just to repeat it in this section here, most training programs, not just in coaching, not just in personal development, I think most training programs around the world in leadership or even relationships, most training programs are teaching shallow awareness and memorized exercises or tools or rules. They're not really teaching the depth of understanding about the people underneath all of the programming. And this is not just a philosophical debate. It's not just, me being on my high horse talking about all these, moral principles that I think are important or that I think are better than anybody else. This is the reason, one of the biggest reasons most coaches fail, because they don't understand what's going on at a deep, deep level. So when you take your shallow preparation and you try to swim with it in the ocean, you will drown. That's another great analogy. A lot of people are learning to surf in the lake where there's no waves. People don't throw you curveballs in the coaching exercises. And if you don't study what happens when people throw you off, then when it happens in real life, which is only going to be all the time, always, you won't be prepared for it. If you learn to surf in the lake, you'll die in the ocean because the ocean has waves. And I would rather you prepare for the ocean and end up in the lake, because if you know how to surf waves and there aren't any that day, you'll be fine. But if you prepare to surf on the paddleboard where there's no waves, you have no chance in the ocean. Zero chance. So people are not being prepared for the reality of what the coaching industry is going to have for them. And it's because people are just focusing on remembering the rules that are content driven. Most programs are content driven. You have to be client driven. You have to understand the client individually so deeply that when one client has different issues than another client, you're still good because you know how to treat the individual person. But again, that means you have to understand humans. You have to commit to mastery, not memory. Mastery is actually a very tiny ingredient in memory. Let me say that again. I think I confused the words there. Memory is actually a tiny component of mastery. The bigger component of mastery is actually recognition. So that you can recognize, and going back to that analogy in the ocean, there are never, ever, ever two waves that are the exact same, ever. But if you understand the concepts of waves and the laws of surfing, then you're good. So it's not about memorization, it's about masterization of the fundamentals. Okay, I hope that is landing for you all, because I know I keep repeating a lot of the same things from different angles or different analogies, but it's because this is the stuff that most people need. Principle number 4 is conviction. I want you to understand that conviction is like on a continuum. Now, these last two principles are more about you in the process, right? The first 3 nested underneath each other. This is more about the whole process of transformation and you becoming a transformational coach or a leader. And all these principles you can apply to any area of your life, right? It's not just as a coach. You can use this in speaking or relationships or leadership or in the boardroom or anywhere. Conviction is on a continuum. What most people have, because most people think it's the solution, is a level of confidence. But I need you to understand, confidence is an intellectual construct. And when you talk to people about confidence, they'll usually use a word that does not apply. They'll usually say, I feel confident. That is not a thing. Confidence is not a feeling because it's an intellectual construct. What confidence is, the way that most people are looking for it and the way that most people are learning it, is essentially the belief that you won't fail. That's essentially what confidence is. So that when people are afraid of failing, they hear the doubts and the worries in their mind and they translate that into, I don't feel confident. Confidence is not a feeling. And deeper than that, what most people are looking for is not hearing the doubts. That's essentially what they're looking for. So if I have a mind that's not doubting itself, then people go, oh, I feel confident. Confident is not a feeling, nor should it be your target. You should not even consider the possibility of not failing on a path that requires failure. So when people think that confidence is the answer, what they'll do is they'll put all their intellectual eggs into the confidence basket and try to learn how to not fail, rather than learn how to pivot when the wind changes, when the variables shift. That's not called failure. That's called being aware of when you need to make a change. Confidence gives the intellect the delusional idea that you're going to do something worth doing and not fail at it. And then if you think that you're confident and you quote unquote feel confident and fail anyway, now that's a bigger problem because you felt confident and still failed. So confidence is a coward's game. Confidence actually increases our cowardice around failing, and it removes belief in self. The true mastery level committed learner understands that it's way more valuable to trust yourself in the experience of failure than to try to pretend there's a way to avoid it. I don't want you to avoid failure. I want you to have the capacity for it so that when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, you can pivot and you're still good. When you know that, now you're moving into a different realm on this continuing. Now you're moving into certainty. But certainty requires a lot of iteration. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of implementation. It requires a lot of shots to be taken. It requires a lot of failure. It requires a lot of learning. It requires a lot of evidence for your mind to recognize that no matter what road we take in a coaching context, we can get where we're ultimately trying to go at some point in time. And no matter how it starts or what happens in the middle, we can always pivot. And you can watch other people doing all of this as part of your learning. And eventually you can get to the point with a lot of practice and a lot of support and a lot of resilience and a lot of understanding from all the dissection of all of it. You can get to the point where you now have certainty. And that's embodied. You will never have certainty without immersion. You will never learn to swim out of the water. You must be immersed in an environment that is designed to teach you how to swim, in an environment that's designed to give you certainty for you to ever have it. You cannot gain certainty just by getting more confident. Because if you listen to what I'm saying, confidence is actually not a target that's worth shooting for. It hurts our process. But when you can get certainty, now you have an embodied level of understanding and awareness and agency and liberation that calms your nervous system down, that provides wisdom and experience in your body where it needs to be. And now you can keep going with a different level of stability. If you're able to do this right now, I just felt my body doing this just kind of naturally. If you're able to do this, if you're able to stand up, you're already standing. And if not, then do this at a certain time, later, but when you can do it. What I want you to do is put your legs together, put your feet together, and rise up on your tippy toes. And then just notice right away, like I'm falling backwards just by doing that because it takes a while for my body to stabilize. I don't have a whole lot of contact with the ground as I'm up on my tippy toes. And so if you try to walk around like this, you'll realize how unstable your body is. Now go back down to your whole feet and now spread your feet out to where your feet are shoulder width apart, and just feel the difference in stability in your body. Now you can even be pushed a certain way and you're fine because you have a different center of gravity. That's kind of like what this process is. When you move into certainty, you can move a lot better. You have more stability, you have more balance, you have more ability to pivot. When you're on your tippy toes, you cannot pivot. If somebody just comes up and pushes you a little bit, or something changes, or the room starts moving, you can't pivot on your tippy toes. But you can pivot from a certain wide stance. That same principle applies as you continue to get better and better and better. And then as you do that more and more and more, you can get to a place of conviction. The place of conviction is like certainty on steroids, where you can't not do this. You can't not listen for the holes in somebody's story. You can't not pay attention to what somebody's face is doing. You can't not listen to the tonality changes. You can't not transformationally engage with people. You just can't not do it because it's a part of you. So we want this work to become your work. And we want you to go from potentially your mind thinking, I can't do it, to your body knowing, I can't not do it. And that's the journey from confidence to certainty. It's an embodiment journey that most people don't take because either they don't know what's available, they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the support, or they don't have the mechanisms that are in place. That, for whatever reason, most people don't do it. And it's one of the reasons why most people fail, which is why success is uncommon, right? And part of being convicted in this work is that you need to be a product of the product. And in this industry, most people are selling things they haven't bought, meaning they're trying to sell coaching packages or high-ticket coaching packages, and they've never bought coaching packages or high-ticket coaching packages. If you're not a product of the product, forget about the morality behind this. I mean, I can make an argument that it's actually fraudulent to try to sell something you haven't bought, but forget about that. If you are trying to offer something and asking people to buy something that you've never been in the customer seat and said yes to buying, they will know. You might as well tell people to explore that volcano that you've never been in and go, but I'm going to stay back here where it's safe. But you go that way. Let's just go right up there. They'll know because your body is telling a story, and they'll be able to feel that you don't actually fully buy into what you're saying. So I'm telling you this from a success advocacy place, advocating for your success. You have to be a product of the product. And when you have that kind of conviction, you can advocate for people to do the work that you've done. But without that kind of conviction, all you're going to be able to do is just tell people what to do. So with conviction, you can advocate. Without conviction, you can only advise. And people actually don't like just being advised, but they'll feel the compassion, the capacity when somebody's advocating for them. So that's conviction. The fifth principle, the final principle here, is trust. One of the sad realities I believe in today's society is that we distrust almost everybody with almost everything, especially in the online world. We distrust influencers, we distrust platforms, we distrust automation, we distrust computers, we distrust systems. When something is not known to you, you don't distrust it, you just don't trust it yet. When I started in this work, coaching was not known to most people. So people didn't trust coaches just because they hadn't experienced it. But now people actively distrust, not just coaches. People actively distrust influencers. They actively distrust leaders or mentors or anybody that's showing up online. People actively distrust. So we live in a world that is no longer defaulted to not trust. It's defaulted to distrust. So what that means, if you think about this on like a meter here, right? You've got distrust if you're looking at my camera, just like the gas meter in your car. You've got empty, you've got middle of the tank, you've got full tank. You've got distrust, you've got don't trust, and then you've got do trust. Almost everybody now is defaulted to distrust. If you think they're defaulted to don't trust and you just operate, you meet them where you think they just don't trust you yet, and then you try to get trust from them in ways that only used to work in the past, you have no chance. Because if they're actually defaulted to distrust and you're meeting them here at don't trust, there's still a gap. You're not meeting them where they are, which means you can't pull them along. In today's world, you must understand that people generally don't trust. By actively distrusting, it's another level. People are actively distrusting. So what does that mean for you? You have to get them where they are and pull them into don't trust and then pull them into do trust. Because if they don't trust you, they won't follow you. If they don't trust you, if you want to be a transformational coach, now somebody will purchase how to flip houses in a recession and buy an informational product and they don't need to trust the source like the person. They just need to buy into the promise. But if you want to help people change their lives, that is an intimate conversation for people. If they don't trust you, they're not following you. If they don't trust you, they're not paying attention to you. If they don't trust you, they won't engage with you. And if they don't pay attention, they don't engage, of course they're not going to purchase anything that you're offering. So you have to meet people where they are, understanding what creates trust in today's world, not what created trust pre-COVID, what created trust in 2010. Trust is not built with qualifications. Trust is built with quality. Trust is no longer built with qualifications. Trust in today's world is built with quality. If you want to help people transform their lives, they have to trust your quality because they're giving you their time, their attention, and ultimately some version of themselves. And if they don't believe that you're meeting them with quality, they won't continue. So it doesn't matter what sign you have hanging on your door. It doesn't matter what qualifications you have. It doesn't matter what letters you have behind your name. If they don't feel quality, they'll go somewhere else. And when they meet you, if they don't feel quality, here's what's not going to happen. If they don't feel quality seeping from your pores, if they don't feel quality emanating from the cells of your body, if they don't feel trust, if they don't feel capacity, here's what's not going to happen. They're not going to say, you know what? I don't trust you yet, but I think you've got trust potential. So I'm going to wait right here. I'm going to put my life on pause while you get prepared. They are not staying at the bus stop. They're going to move right on to somebody else who they feel is prepared. So you've got to do this work so that when you meet the people that are designed for you and built for you and meant for you, you'll be ready for them. That's what's required with trust nowadays. And here's the good news. You can do it by getting really good. What most coaching programs are teaching is how to get clients. Most coaching programs are not teaching how to be such a phenomenal coach that clients come get you. How about that? How about instead of you chasing them, you become such high quality that they chase you? If you want people's trust, earn it. If you want their attention, earn it. If you want their engagement, earn it. If you want their money, earn it. The onus is on you to earn people's response. They don't deserve, or you don't deserve anything from anybody else. But if you increase your value, you increase your quality, people will come to you. If you don't, it doesn't matter what your prices are. It doesn't matter what your programs are titled. It doesn't matter how many modules you have in your online course. None of that matters because they don't trust you. So the good news is all of this can be done, but it's not linear and it's not observable, and you usually don't recognize mastery in the process of building it. You usually recognize mastery when you fall down, you get back up and you look back and go, whoa, I got back up faster this time. Or I didn't fall down as deep this time. Whoa, I've made progress. That's how mastery progresses. It's not linear. It's not conscious. It's not predictable. It's not measurable. But it's noticeable to them. And it's noticeable to you. And if you buy anything that I'm selling you conceptually, if you believe that these 5 principles are required for you to have the body for transformation, then you need a program that provides it. And I'll be honest with you, not that I'm trying to, compare myself to anybody else or throw anybody under a bus. If they're not talking about it, they're not teaching it. If they're not explaining this stuff, then it ain't in the content. So a lot of this work requires you to take control of your journey and recognize what is the next best thing for me on this path. And who can get me there, and who do I need supporting me in my corner? What does this actually look like? What I really want you to take away from part 2 of this series. First of all, let me know what's landed for you. Let me know what questions you have, but specifically let me know what's landing for you. Is there anything that really stood out for you? Is there anything that reminded you of something that you had forgotten, or gave you a new sense of awareness or whatever? I always want to hear what's really landing for all of you. And if you keep coming back to our webinars, you'll see things change. This is the first time we've taught this content. This particular framework is roughly 3 hours old. Because we're just constantly okay, what do we need? How can we put this in it? What's a new word we can use? What's a new analogy? What's a new example? What's a new implementation? What did I learn yesterday that I can teach today? It's a constant evolving process, right? It's kind of like the cement. If you've ever been behind a cement truck, I used to be so fascinated when I was young, why are those things continually moving? Well, that's because the cement doesn't harden if it's constantly in motion like that. So we're constantly in motion. The cement never hardens here. It's just constantly trying to rework it and understand, and we want your input as much as possible in all of this. That's why I want to know what's landing or what questions you still have, etc. But what I really want you to take away is that there's a machine that produces results. It produces transformational results. And the only way it won't work for you is if you don't work it. We design programs. Here's our goal every time we design a program. I want to design a machine such that when a human being, a committed human being, enters that machine, meaning enters a course or comes to an event or whatever, how they exit the course, how they exit the room, how they exit the session, has fundamentally transformed their embodiment. That's how we design everything that we do in this company, because I'm more interested in how you exit the program than just trying to sell sugar to the addicts and get as many people into the program. And so I honor all of you that are still around. To be transparent, nearly everybody that started is still here. And that is so amazing. It's amazing because most people don't stay in the moment of learning. They're multitasking and, just wandering off and, just doing all kinds of things. And mastery cannot be multitasked. Mastery cannot be microwaved and it cannot be multitasked. So if you want the outcome of mastery, then you must be in a machine that produces it. You must be in a program that produces it. Our launch event is designed to produce mastery of the principles that we're going to teach. And it's not the whole thing. It's 4 days of foundational work. And I'm not promising you that at the end of the 4 days, you're going to have $50,000 in your pocket, that you're going to have a community of 10,000 raving fans. No, because all that depends on all kinds of variables, but we're going to teach you the muscles that you need to learn. We're going to teach you the stability. We're going to teach you the embodiment so that you have a chance on the moon. Because if you don't learn this stuff, there is no chance. And that's what I want you to take away the most, that there is a recipe for you. Why? Because you are the most important ingredient. If you've lived a human life and you've learned lessons, somebody wants those lessons. Somebody wants to learn what you've learned. And if you get into the machinery that produces transformational coaches, at some point in time, you will be a transformational coach such that you can't not do this work. And we have a lot of students that say those exact same words, but it takes time, but everybody can do it. I've never yet met a human that cannot heal. I've only met most humans that choose not to. I've never met anybody that cannot become a transformational coach. I just see most people choose not to. So it is possible if you do the work that's required at a foundational level. Be in the right classroom and be in the classroom right. I hope for a lot of you, that right classroom is launched at the end of next month, virtually or in person. If you believe what I've been teaching, and by the way, we have part 3 coming up. Part 3 is going to be more on conversion mastery. If you're interested in business, you have to understand that, so you have to attend. If you believe in any of the principles that I'm teaching, your only next question is, where am I going to get those? Because if you believe that these principles are required for success in today's world, then you cannot shortcut these. The only question is, where am I going to get them? Where am I going to build the trust? Where am I going to create the conviction? Where am I going to understand the deep, deep principles that allows me to look at the person instead of the programming, underneath the systems instead of just the symptoms, so that I can help people with their arrested development? That's the work. If you're not going to do it with us, if you're not going to do it with Launch, fantastic. I'll root for you from the sidelines. But this is the work. If you're not going to do it with us, you have to do it with somebody else. Don't be like most coaches who've not done this work. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or make it sound like I'm better than anybody else. It's just we pay attention to the actual foundational principles that cause success or failure. And this is it. And as I said at the very beginning, all of this is coming from 18 years in this business. This is what I've learned, and this is what I want to teach. With that, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. This is only part 2. Please come back for part 3. How many of you have watched all of part 1 and now you've watched all of part 2 so far? So you've been here the whole time. I want you to type in chat. I want to celebrate you again. Not that any of you that are just watching this or watching the replays are any, less important or valid or whatever. I mean, if you're here, then obviously you watched all of this part. I just really want to celebrate the people that are committed to deep work. And it is what's going to separate you from almost everybody else who's learning to surf in the lakes. Trust me. If you learn to surf in the ocean, you're going to be better than almost all the coaches out there, because the marketers in the coaching industry, the marketers in the personal development industry, the marketers in the human industry are shallowing our experiences nonstop. So the way to separate yourself is go deep in an industry of shallow. Be high value in an industry that's just trying to teach high speed. And with your distinction and depth, you can make a tremendous impact. You can transform a lot of lives, and you can be wildly successful beyond your current level of comprehension. That's what we want to support you with. So show up for part 3. Show up for Launch. For those of you that are coming, can't wait to support you either in person or virtual. And I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.